The owner looked at the plan and he looked at me and he said, I am too old for this. I took a candy bar home, gave it to Sally, and said, what about buying a chocolate company?
Today on Time We Discuss, I want to welcome Brian and Sally Krichbaum. It's time we discuss what it's like being gourmet chocolatiers. Brian and Sally, thank you for joining me today.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. This is cool. So first off, I haven't had any chocolatiers or anything remotely like this on the show before, so this is very exciting for me. I have an awful sweet tooth, so this is doubly exciting from that perspective. And also, I haven't had the opportunity to interview two people at the same time. Actually, that's not true. One other time I did that. So this is kind of a unique experience for me. I really, really like this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sally, I'm going to start with you. What is a typical day like? You are owners of a gourmet chocolate shop. So let's talk about what is a typical day like for you?
We have different roles. So we actually have a factory. We make candy, more than just selling it. So for me, a lot of it's book work that I do. There is a lot of reviewing of the storefront. We actually have 3 stores, but we have a storefront in front of our factory. And then it's also eating candy too.
I do most of the purchasing, the logistics. I have an engineering background, which makes me the maintenance man here. So I've told our associates in the past, you don't have to break something every day just to make me feel good. So we've been around 125 years, and a lot of the equipment we use has also been around 125 years. So you have to be good at fixing things to keep it running. And so that's a big part of my job. The other is just, I think typical of being a good manager of people, spending time talking to the ladies who are making the chocolates and making sure that we're all on the same page and keep going forward. This time of year, we're getting ready for Christmas here, so it can be crazy and people need to chat. They just need to tell you what they're thinking about. And so I spend a lot of time doing that too.
From when we were talking before we started recording, you said you are the 4th owners of this business. This business has been going for 125 years, give or take. So how long ago did you actually take over the business? At what point did that happen?
We bought it on November 1st, 2013. The owner that we purchased it from, I think he was quite mean, selling it on November 1st. Because we were very green. We had never done retail in our lives. And here he let us have it right at Christmas season. But he is a good friend, actually. And he stayed with us for about a year, offering some counsel when we needed it and that sort of thing. But it was quite the adventure to start off the way we did.
One of the things I like to talk about on my show, I like to talk about 2 different ends of the spectrum. The one is people that are just entering their professional career and what opportunities they have. And then at the other end, people that are midlife, mid-career, trying to pivot and move into something new. So I suspect it sounds like that is kind of where you came in, that you were probably doing other things and you kind of came into buying this chocolate business. So what was that like? What was that learning curve like? What skills were you able to incorporate into this? How did that all go for you?
Well, a lot of it was learning how to work together. Brian had been a consultant, and so he was gone quite a bit. And so now, all of a sudden, we're together 24/7. We purchased it right as our kids were all have left the nest. I say it was providentially provided because I was wondering what I was going to do next. And lo and behold, this chocolate company came available. And so it's been a really interesting ride. The first 3 years probably were getting used to each other and trying to find how we work together. But it was a challenge. It was a challenge. Now we're pretty smooth, but at the time it was quite a challenge.
Let's see, for me, I was an engineer. I spent a lot of time in engineering. And then I was an executive at an automotive supplier. So I was used to bossing people around. And for the most part, they wanted me happy, so they'd do what I asked them to do. So when we got Gilbert Chocolates together, and the first time I bossed Sally around, I realized right away that she's my wife, not my employee. And even though we're working, I
I'm
can't.
your partner in this business.
And so bossing her around didn't work very well. And it took me 3 years to learn that lesson. So
Yes.
that's the 3 years of getting used to it.
And it was like I learned to stay out of the factory. I just don't go in there too much because Brian pretty much handles that. And like he said, he is the handyman as well because things get broken all the time. So and I learned to the role that I would fill, that was different than what he was doing. And the first place where we were in a really tiny cottage when we bought it. And to begin with, we would have to kind of take turns using the office, which was quite a challenge because that place was so small. And there's like, well, I'm not going in today because you're going to sit in the office all day and I won't get in there. And so, there was a lot of that kind of stuff too that we had to just learn to adjust to each other.
I know you said you bought the business from a friend, but why a chocolate business? Were you already looking to purchase a business? Do you have aside from I assume a love of chocolate, why the chocolate business? Why not some other business? Was it convenience? Why chocolate?
A lot of the answer to that is, it's the door that was open. But we had looked at buying businesses a couple times and came close a couple times, but something or the other came up to stop it from happening. And all of those business were more engineering services, engineering products type businesses. And frankly speaking, Sally didn't really care. It was going to be another job that I had, and she probably wasn't going to be involved a lot. So I was consulting, and I was consulting at Gilbert Chocolates, and we came up with an improvement plan. This is what you need to get the business growing again. And the owner looked at the plan and he looked at me and he said, I am altogether too old for this. I'm just going to sell the company. And so I took a candy bar home, gave it to Sally, and said, what about buying a chocolate company? That caught her fancy a little bit better than buying a machine shop.
It is. It's pretty fun sometimes. It's really fun to think up new way to experiment and to taste test and things.
I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. One of the questions I'd like to ask is, what are the hidden benefits of a particular career? So, being the owners of a chocolate business, what are some of the perks, the unexpected perks of being the owners of this business?
Well, here in Jackson, we are an icon. And so we bought a brand when we were buying our chocolate company. And so the people of Jackson, Michigan really love Gilbert Chocolates. So that does open doors that wouldn't be open to us otherwise. For a small company, we have about 25 employees. And so when I will do several, like the Kiwanis, they'll ask me to come and talk about Gilbert Chocolates, and they'll give me a standing ovation. That's one of the perks, I guess. So they really love it. So that's been a really nice thing.
And I've always been a history fan, and now, we've been here 125 years, and we're part of the history of Jackson. And we're caretakers of the chocolate business, but we're also caretakers of that history. And so it makes it fun. We've spoke to the Historical Society several times. Lots of groups will ask us to come speak to them, give them, a little lowdown on um, what
We're not ruining the company. That's the important thing.
yeah. Yeah, the city of Jackson loves Gilbert chocolates.
Yeah.
So yeah, they would run us out of town on a rail if we did anything to mess it up. So we're pretty conservative in the way we're approaching the business. We want it to grow. It was a big company 50 years ago, and we think it should be a big company again, bigger company again. But we're not willing to do anything to sacrifice the quality, the customer experience of Gilbert Chocolates. So we still use the same equipment that was used here 100 years ago. Literally, the chocolate melter I have a photograph that was taken in 1925, and that chocolate melter was in the photograph. Our marble table is the same thing. They're right there. You can still see the chip in the corner. So we have the same equipment that they were using over 100 years ago. And it makes it handmade and it makes it fresher and better. We have added some automation on areas that we could do it without sacrificing quality, but we won't change the recipes for anything. And so all that stuff comes together to make this Quite an experience when you come to Gilbert Chocolates for the first time. You'll Most people say wow at the first bite.
I believe that.
We
Let's
are
talk.
a niche chocolate company. We're not like big like Hershey's, but where they have huge manufacturing factories and things, and that makes a difference. I don't know why, but it makes a difference in the taste of the chocolate. And so it's a high quality chocolate and it's a niche kind of company. So it's different than if we were mass producing.
I'm glad you mentioned the nicheness. The nicheness? Can I say
Yeah.
that?
There you go.
Let's go with that. So there are a handful of companies in this area. So I'm located outside of Philadelphia, and within maybe like a 90 mile radius, there are a number of small like bakeries, cookie shops, and they will sell online. They'll ship, nationally or whatever. So my question for you, how difficult would it be for someone that they want to start their own small chocolate business, their own gourmet niche chocolate business? How difficult is it to break into this industry? Is it incredibly difficult? What's it like?
In some regards, we don't know because we didn't start a chocolate company from scratch. We bought a brand that was once one of the larger chocolate companies in the United States, and our job is to revitalize that brand. So when we talk about Gilbert Chocolates, we get to talk about the chocolate we supplied to the United States Army during World War II. We get to talk about our founder, John Gilbert's mother, developing the recipes in the late 1800s. We have this foundation there that is hard to replicate. So when chocolate companies, small chocolate companies, come and go, somebody says, I want to do chocolate, and they start doing it. They have moderate success, but to make it through a couple generations is the hard part. And Gilbert Chocolates has already done that. And so we got the history, we got the recipes, we got the equipment, and we got a foundation of a huge fan base here in South Central Michigan.
And that's what they would have to do is build their fan base. And it's hard. Selling is hard. It's really hard.
We put a store in a mall about 40 miles from here, and it does okay, but it's not like Jackson. In Jackson, people come to the mall to go to Gilbert Chocolates. In Ann Arbor, people come to the mall and they might see Gilbert Chocolates and stop in, but not nearly as many of them are coming with the purpose of I've got to get some chocolates.
How have your sales changed over the past, 13 years, 12 years, whatever it's been, as people become not necessarily more health conscious, but kind of in that vein where they might not be consuming as much sugar? There's a lot of like different, fad diets out there. Has that impacted you over the past decade plus, or has it still been pretty consistent? What's that been like?
I would say no, it hasn't really affected us. We do sell a dairy-free bar now that we actually make ourselves from the bean to bar. We have a vegan, we call it a vegan chocolate, I guess, but such a small portion of our sales that it's negligible. And we used to sell a lot of dark chocolate when that was the big health trend, but even that has been scaled back as no one hears about, how the advantages of dark chocolate anymore. It's not in the news.
Going back to when you first bought the business, okay, Brian, you said you had a background in engineering.
Yeah.
Sally, what was your background in? Did you have a business background or no?
No, not really. I was a stay-at-home mom. I did a lot of volunteer work, and also I did freelance writing. But the best thing I would think that being a stay-at-home mom does for you is that it teaches you self-discipline. You either, you have your day to do whatever you want, really. If you get, you got kids, you get them out of the house, you could go home and read a book, but you have to have self-discipline to do the things that have to be done to run a good household. And that has probably been the best thing about being an owner of a business is I have that skill. And so it's not hard to keep busy and keep the things done. And so it's not really a bad thing.
And that makes complete sense. So let's translate that into like the business side of things. Invariably, as everyone does, they're going to have different knowledge gaps in different things in whatever endeavor they're doing. So what did you do to bridge your different knowledge gaps when it comes to business? Maybe it's, with marketing or bookkeeping or whatever. How did you fill in those gaps to make sure you're doing everything to the best that you could and then continue to evolve?
We've talked about this a lot. I am an engineer. I was an operations expert. I know, how things work. I know how production facilities work, and we've made huge gains in the factory. Just moving the factory, that in itself was a huge productivity gain. Um, so that engineering stuff, even the maintenance of this old equipment stuff, this is not hard. You figure out what you want to do and you do it. And if it doesn't work exactly right, then you make a tweak and you get it going. So we've done a lot of that, and that stuff's frankly easy for me. Um, so like most people, that's the stuff I like to do. There's other stuff that's not really hard, but I don't like to do, which I spend more time doing, like I'm the accounts payable clerk. I write the checks to the customer or to the suppliers. Um, we split up the payrolls. So I do part of the payroll and Sally does part of the payroll. But making sure the employees get paid. They don't like it very well when they don't get paid. They won't be employees. I mean, our employees are our friends, but they're friends with a caveat. If you pay us, we'll be friends. If you don't pay us, we'll be gone. There's that. There's things that
Dealing with the government.
oh yes,
Yeah, that's a big
government
deal.
relations,
That's a
and
big deal.
I think almost any small business person would say the same thing. The biggest
Yeah.
fear we have every morning is, what is the government going to do to us today? And keeping on top of that is a big deal. A couple years ago, we switched over to a payroll service, and they do most of that government interface with that, which is worth every penny, every single penny, because that stuff's just hard, and even the people at the government can't really help you walk through it. They don't know how to do it either.
I would say that probably for me, the difference, one of my skills was that I was used to working with kids, and the caliber of the employee that we have to find are a lot more on that scale than they are the high class professional. And so there was a lot of, I had a lot more patience with our staff. I had a lot more understanding with our staff and with our retail staff in particular. Not so much the factory, because those ladies have been there forever and they were constantly bossing us around, telling me what I was doing wrong. But that sort of thing. So I do most of the hiring for the stores and things like that because that's my job.
The factory staff here is experienced. I've been here, 4 out of the 5 have been here longer than we have. 15 years, 20 years, 22 years. And they don't need any supervision. They don't even need direction. Sometimes they need information so they can make the decisions. But they're good at it. They've been doing it a long time. The retail side is a different business, really. We're a manufacturer and we're a retailer. And the retail side, it's harder to keep employees. People come and go, and we want things done a certain way. Even, we're a high-end store. You know, we're not a discount store. We're high end, and we expect our employees to dress like they're working in a high-end retail store. And some people don't want to. I want to wear blue jeans to work. Well, you can, but not here. There's that part of it that's, and I did. I spent my career working with, engineers, you know, engineers and everyone, college graduates, and it's not like that anymore. But the people that work for us are great people, and we're glad to have them, and we do call them our friends.
Going back, you talked about the recipes for the chocolate, and you said you're using the same recipes from before, however long before is.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're not inventing new recipes. You're not like, so my mind immediately jumped to, I spoke to a food scientist, Dr. Maya Warren, and we talked about food science and ice cream and all that good stuff. Again, sweet tooth, you know. Um, do you employ anyone like that to create new recipes for you, or no, you're strictly sticking with what's tried and true?
We don't have a food scientist. We're really not big enough. Um, we have developed new chocolates over the years, and we've also, I would say, resurrected some. When we bought the company, about 40% of the chocolates were purchased from other chocolate companies, which drove me bonkers. It's like I've got employees who want to work more, and I've got um, capacity in the factory, and we already know how to do chocolates, and we can do it for less than we can buy it. Why are we buying chocolates? So we figured out how to do peanut butter cups. We found John Gilbert's original chocolate cherry cordial recipes. We figured out how to make seafoam, and all these things and a dozen more we just brought in-house and started doing them ourselves. And we have better control, and they're fresher, and the customers like them better. And
We,
our employees get to work more. So
but we do make, and we do follow trends. For example, the Dubai chocolate. Have you heard of the Dubai chocolates?
I have not, but go on.
Oh, well, we call them chocolates with a Mediterranean flair, but they have pistachio nuts and they've got phyllo dough in them, and they're unique. But they were customers who were coming to us, and they were asking, mostly young people coming and saying, "Where's do you have any Dubai chocolates?" So we had to explore it, and yep, now we have Dubai chocolates, and if you go to a chocolate shop, you'll probably find some. So we make them too. So that's a way, that's one way we have tried to keep up with some trends that are going on. Because yes, we do pay attention to those as well as the old.
When you start to do that, so for that, the peanut butter cups, the cordials, who starts that? Sally, is that you? Brian, is that you? Is it someone just one of your senior
It
people in the
depends.
factory?
It depends.
so the cordials was me, the cordial
Yes.
cherries.
He found
Um,
this machine up in the attic and brought it down, and we all wondered what it was for. So he figured out what it was for.
Well, that's pretty much exactly the way it happened. The peanut butter cups, our daughter, who was in like a junior or senior in college when we bought the company, said these peanut butter cups don't measure up to the standards of the rest of the chocolates. You got to figure out how to make your own. And it took us about 6 months. We did. So she instigated that for us.
I'll take credit for the toffee creams. Those are really
Toffee.
good.
And some of it's come from the customers. The
Yeah.
customers want a particular thing, and we try to keep them happy. So, and if it makes sense, we'll keep it. We'll keep it around.
One of the ways we have grown is that we have this contract with the largest chocolate club in the country. And they have pushed us to find ways to add a little extra or change one of the chocolates in the box, that sort of thing. And so we've had a little bit of, encouragement from the outside too.
It sounds so good. My mouth is just watering. I'm
I
loving all
know,
this.
and it is good. You should work here. It's really hard to not just a piece here, a piece there, and next thing you know, you've had a quarter pound of chocolate.
When
Well, you're kind of fortunate. Philadelphia is one of the chocolate hotspots in the United States.
it is,
A
it is.
lot of chocolates, bean to the bean to chocolate is done right there in the Philadelphia area.
Yeah, that and the soft pretzels, which I absolutely love. Unfortunately, I am running a little short on time, but one thing I like to do whenever I'm speaking with someone, I like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in, more about their business. So if there's something specific you'd like to discuss, the floor is yours.
We're big supporters of the history people here in Jackson. So we support the Historical Society. There's a Civil War muster each summer. We help sponsor that. And those are the kinds of things we like to do. It fits in with the business. We're a historical business, and people like it. Lots of people are history buffs. It's kind of cool. Here in Jackson, the granddaughter-in-law of our founder is still alive and lives here in Jackson. She and her husband um, actually lived with John and Gilbert for 4 or 5 years when they first got married. And so she loves to talk about Gilbert Chocolates. She loves to talk about her grandfather-in-law, and she's kind of a fixture here in town. Everyone knows her, and so it's cool to talk about history. But we went to a historical society meeting, and she was there, and it's like, oh, I got to get it exactly right today because we have a checker here in the audience. So, yeah, so it's fun. I mean, if you like history, if you like chocolates, if you like, business, um, there's not a better job. It's the best job I've had in my career.
I'll make sure to get those links from you. I'll put them in the show notes. They'll be on the website. They'll be in the description. They'll be all over the place. And when people are trying to find that information, they can easily find it. Brian and Sally, it's been absolutely awesome having you on Time We Discuss, and we learned what it's like being gourmet chocolatiers.
Thank you for having us.